Hello, hello, hello.
Good, hi, good morning,
Oh,
folks.
sorry.
This is John Decker, the Director of Community Services at Alta California Regional Center. Today is March 14th, 2025. This is Coffee with Community Services, Alta California Regional Center's weekly service provider meeting. Good morning. As usual, we will do an introduction of our staff and then get into our agenda for today. We've got 77 folks logged in so far. So for community services folks, I see our manager Helen is on. Good morning. From client services, I see our manager Carol Wilhelm in her new office with that's the desk everyone's going to see behind every Alta person that's in the office. And then we have Shauna and Michael from Community Services. Good morning, and Sharon as well. I see Boyd and Tom and Carly and Alicia and Rhonda and Christine and my assistant Zach and Alejandra and Virginia from Community Services too. Good morning. I see Megan Qualick logged in before she heads off to court, I think today, right, Megan? Thumbs up on the way to court later? Yep. From Client Services, I see Cindy Leon. Good morning, Cindy. And then from Community Services, good morning. I see Jessica on and Ethan and Christy and our manager Jordan as well. From Client Services, I see Max on. Good morning, Max. And we've got Mason and Jaslyn and Beverly from Community Services on too. So good morning, folks. Hey, Maria. I see Maria Rico on. And our manager Michelle is on. Damien. We got the whole crew on today. Everyone's working. Rihanna is on. Scott's on, our manager. Jason, our lead. Yvette's on. Good morning, folks. All right. Let's get into our agenda. Michael's going to give us our sign of the week in Deaf Culture 101. We're going to get into a rate study discussion. We're going to touch on the 880s, the Service Provider Directory and the Quality Incentive Program, your March billing, so the billing that you will be doing at the beginning of April. Michelle has some announcements related to upcoming office hours related to the rate study. We have general updates that we just received from DDS late yesterday on the rate study that we're going to provide related to 113 providers. We have Shift Care here. We mentioned that we were going to bring Shift Care back because we gave them a short period of time last time to present their platform, and you guys were really engaging with them right as our meeting was ending. And so wanted to give them a little bit more time to do some Q&A with you folks as well later. And then I've got some things on the calendar from DDS and the regional center that I want to go over with folks. So good morning to everyone, and I will throw it over to Michael.
Good morning, everyone. For this week's sign of the week, we have coming up March 17th. So I will be teaching you the signs related to that special day, St. Patrick's Day. So you start with your dominant hand and you make this hand shape like you're going to pinch somebody. And then you pinch your opposite arm and do a little twist. But don't actually pinch yourself. So then for day, you use the D hand shape and bring it down on your other arm like this. Let me back up a little bit for you. Day. So St. Patrick's here. Day. Excellent. The next one, we have a few colors for you. Gold, like this. Use your dominant hand, make the G hand shape and shake it like this.
That would be green.
I'm sorry, green. Sorry, yes, that was green. My apologies. And then gold. There's actually several different signs for gold. So I only picked one. We go like this. So you start with almost like the ILY hand shape. You use your index finger from your ear, bring it down into a Y, and you shake that Y out. gold, like this. Okay, so we'll do all three again. We have St. Patrick's Day, green, and gold. Good job, everybody. Keep practicing. And you can also now tell everybody happy St. Patrick's Day. You can tell them to wear some green. You can look for some gold. And I will also be putting the link in the chat for you to practice. Okay, so for Deaf Culture 101 today, we have part 3. Somebody may have missed part 1 and 2. You can check those out on YouTube. So the first part was about language deprivation and what that looks like, how it hurts deaf children. The second part focused on Lead K, what they do. And today, this last part is going to be focusing on more precisely what Lead K services look like. So Lead K is a family service to help deaf and hard of hearing children develop strong language skills to ensure that they're ready to go into kindergarten. The service is free for families, so there is no charge. They provide resources, guidance, and community support. So you might be wondering what exactly they do. I have 3 things here for you. We have early intervention, we have a family deaf coach provider, and we have a parent mentor. So the early intervention is like what the regional center does in terms of supporting parents of deaf children, support at different meetings for school. A deaf coach for the family is a person who themselves is deaf or hard of hearing and who is fluent in American Sign Language. Typically, they work with the family and provide support as that child is developing language, and they help the parents feel more confident in their ability to raise their deaf or hard of hearing child. The family deaf coach has a few services that they offer. They do help the parents learn ASL by teaching a few signs to improve communication. They help the parent understand the needs of a deaf child and understand culture and community. And they also provide the emotional support to encourage and encouragement for the family. They also provide strategies to assist with language development and maybe through different activities as well, for everyday activities as well. And they help the family connect with their deaf or hard of hearing child. They also help introduce deaf role models. So for example, if a deaf coach were to come visit a family, they could be showing the parents how to sign for routine things like it's mealtime or bedtime or playtime. And so, they may also notice where the family is struggling in communication. So then they might engage the family in active games or activities that would encourage signing so that they have that hands-on practice in supporting the communication with the deaf child that will then later help them in school and in the community. A parent mentor is somebody who has experience raising a deaf or hard of hearing child. So they understand some of those ins and outs. They understand some of those challenges along the journey. The parent mentor also can provide assistance with things such as even just sharing experiences, what worked for their deaf and hard of hearing child and their family, what didn't work. Offer emotional support and encouragement through this journey, and as well as helping parents understand what different levels of their child's development will look like. The parent mentor can provide advice for the family and help them feel comfortable in navigating this journey with the deaf child, because typically the parents, as we mentioned before, this is their first experience with meeting a deaf person in general. So it's nice to have someone who's also parented a deaf child for support. Before 2015, Lead K was not a law. It passed in 2015. And so before that, many deaf and hard of hearing children were experiencing language deprivation and struggling with communication, and nobody knew exactly where to get support or how to get support throughout this really tough journey as these deaf and hard of hearing children were growing up without very good communication, which then in turn resulted in them disconnecting from their families. Deaf and hard of hearing adults had continued to feel disconnected from their families as they grew up because of that lack of communication. And some had even decided that they're not even going to put in the effort to see their families because of that communication limits. But then Lead Case started changing that frame for us. The state began to incorporate that support into law so that communication can be developed, and we're hoping that more states will follow in suit to ensure that deaf and hard of hearing children have full access to language and the ability to develop strong relationships with their family. So that's it today for Deaf Culture 101, but I do want to remind everybody that tomorrow we have the Love in Literature event. The Love and Literacy event. Let me type that out here. 1 second. Oh, I can't quite share my screen right now, but I will send you the link. We have the event. We are going to have a table at this event, and we're hoping to see you there at the Love and Literature event.
All right, thank you very much, Michael, and appreciate you sharing that information. We are going to discuss the rate study a little bit in here. And so I want to touch on a few different things. Some of this information was shared at our Provider Advisory Committee meeting yesterday, and some information came in like late yesterday from the Department of Developmental Services. So we had mentioned during our Provider Advisory Committee meeting that we had been working on the calculations for the rate study increases or hold harmless calculations for the 880 providers. 880 is the additional transportation component that's tied to typically care homes or to day programs. So analysis was done. The department is issuing additional support and guidance to regional centers on how to categorize the 880s. Damien worked on this along with his manager, Michelle, and we certainly, when we looked at the data, were able to determine the outliers, the ones that their rates did not seem to align, and we were able to address those. We did have a few vendors that did fall into the held harmless category, but we're going to be working with that service provider to address kind of the utilization and see if we may fund transportation possibly under a different 880 or under a like a 875 general transportation. So we'll be having some discussions. The nice thing is now that we have the calculations done, the hold harmless remains in effect until June of 2026. So we have ample time to work with any providers to address any of these hold harmless issues. I want to reiterate, and I think I mentioned it last month too, but hold harmless are outliers. They are things that indicate that the rate study did not seem to align with the rate study cost calculations really don't seem to align. And so we really will be working with service providers to try to figure out what those different costs are and see if there is possibly other service codes that we may need to move people to better align people. With that, I'm going to share my screen. I do this every time we have coffee with community services, and I know that the 100 people that are here are the ones that do attend pretty regularly, but I think it's just good information to stay updated. We also know that the Department of Developmental Services is very frequently updating their website with information, and so everyone can just confirm that they can see the Alta's website there. Or excuse me, not Alta's, TDS's website. So just want to touch on a few different things. So the step that we're in right now is we have transitional rates that have been given to the service providers. I'm just going to navigate here to where you guys can find a lot of this information that we'll be going over. So right now we're in the phase, there we go, sorry, froze for a moment there, of the transitional rates. And the transitional rates are in place while we are working on moving you to new subcodes. So I know that we recently received correspondence from one of our transportation providers, and the transportation provider asked, I've done my information, I've provided related to the held harmless, at what point are we going to be switching over to our new rate methodology? And that's kind of where we're at right now. The transitional rates that we've given have allowed you all to stay where you're at within your own service codes and not transition yet, but get the full rate study increases that you should have got effective January 1. So like the sense of urgency, we will align you to the new service code. So some of you are going to be moving from an 055 day program to a 531, 532, etc. Like that is going to happen. But right now you should be receiving the funding at the level that you should be transitioning to. And that's your transitional rates. When we have done the transition, Michelle, I think the plan is that it would be, we're going to get the acknowledgement forms in, and then we are looking at the month afterwards trying to begin switching authorizations over to the different type of rate methodologies.
Correct. I have standard language that staff can share as well, and I can share that if you'd like me to. But yeah, the summary is that once the new acknowledgements that are signed go out, and they are indeed signed, accounting will be processing those so that by May 1st, you'll be able to bill for the month of April with the new updated rate and subcodes. If you are a transportation company and you've already signed your acknowledgement and worked with R&D, the timeline still applies. But we do have your information. There's nothing further that you need to do at this time unless we inquire about something additional. Also, retro payments, accounting let us know that once those rates are updated, accounting has to manually input all those retro payments. So they will begin processing those. All of those should be completed by the end of the fiscal year.
So I'm going to just check the chat real quick, and I don't see anything has popped up in the chat. I wanted to get into the acknowledgement letters, but just wanted to see if anyone had any questions about what we've talked about so far. All right. So that's where you're at right now. You're under those transitional rates. You'll be transitioning over. A key component of you transitioning over is having an acknowledgement letter that accurately portrays what your quality incentive is. We are currently, and we provided this information yesterday to our provider advisory committee. We're currently working on updating the letter to ensure that we have your quality incentive information in there. And additionally, the letters that are going out, it may be that you were originally vendored under one service code, and now you may have multiple service codes if we unbundled your rates. And so the newest iteration of our forms indicates that there's like multiple boxes for multiple different multiple different service codes that you may be breaking up into. A few other things as it relates to the service provider letters. We're finalizing the information related to our 117 service providers, our specialized clinical services. We're finalizing the information related to our 048 programs, which is our early autism treatment or early intensive behavioral therapy services. And then we'll be updating that information on the rate letters and sending them out to you. We'll acknowledge that we sent out many hundreds of letters that did not have the most updated, accurate quality incentive information possibly on them, or had errors in the department's workbooks. If you've received an invitation as a service provider to sign now for one of these letters, we pulled it back. So if one was not done, and the message that Michelle shared yesterday at our provider advisory committee is that we will be resending accurate, updated letters to you as service providers as well. And then the other, let's see, Michelle, anything else as it relates to those letters?
We will be meeting on Monday. I'll be meeting with Iqbal just to go over the final form. I'm hoping because it has changed a little bit and the boxes have changed, we would like to probably pull together a one pager for service providers to be able to reference so that they understand the updates.
Thank you. And so having these, I wanted to touch on another subject that came up during our provider advisory committee meeting, and I wanted to kind of repeat it here for a much larger group of folks, is that early on during the rate study, there was a move towards hourly rates for all day program providers. During the course of the development of the directives for the rate study, the department modified the language indicating that that day program providers, and I feel like maybe, Michelle, I should just share my screen with this so that folks can see it specifically, but that those providers don't necessarily have to move to the new rates. And so I'm going to share my screen real quickly. I'm in the directive for adult day services. And okay. So providers that are currently using a daily rate may temporarily, this is for in-home day program, but it's the same for a number of these different ones. Temporarily may bill services for individuals. Hourly rate will continue to bill services hourly for each individual with the rate based on. But any of our providers that currently have, let me find that. Sorry, one second here. Scroll down. That's the behavioral day service one. Where's the plain day services one? There it is. All right.
It's right there.
Providers that currently have a daily rate and new providers temporarily may bill services for each individual with a daily rate based on an authorized ratio of employee to supported individual ranging from 1 to 2 to 1 to 10. This will continue until further notice and at least through December 31st of 2025. If the provider is providing a different type of service to an individual on the same day as day services should not be billed using an hourly rate. So initially we were looking at this as our regional center's charge was that we had to get all of you converted from a daily rate billing over to an hourly rate. We were very clear in our discussions with accounting. We mentioned it yesterday during our provider advisory committee. At this time, we are not looking at moving providers that have a daily rate over to an hourly rate until we receive some type of further guidance from the department, because the current directive does not require us to do it. We've certainly heard significant feedback from our service providers about not being interested in voluntarily doing it. So we will clean this up as we do our next round of acknowledgement letters. We recognize that the department has set a date of March 31st of 2025 for the completion of all of the acknowledgement letters. Concurrently, as I mentioned, we are still receiving feedback from the department about challenges related to the workbooks and the formulas for the data that is in there related to what your rates are. So we have data that we're still receiving that we're finding inaccuracies in and being told to kind of wait by the department. And then we also concurrently have this charge to get it all done by March 31st. So we are moving forward at the fastest pace possible to share with you all your updated acknowledgement letters so that you will have an opportunity to review it and make your determinations. The likelihood that our regional center can accurately get out all of the letters prior to March 31st would certainly be very challenging based on the flow of the data that we need from the state in order to be able to give you those letters accurately. With that, for Jordan Eller's service providers under service code 113, if any of you are logged in today, we are putting a little pin in our discussions with you all because we've learned from, well, the department has asked us to put a pin in our discussions with all of you. We think, I don't know that we had put out any acknowledgement forms previously for that group, but we will not be sending out any, we will not be discussing with you specific rates because we're told by the department that they are going to be looking at the workbooks for level 7 providers, right, Jordan? For people that are going to have those customizable residential rates. And so we need to see what the department has to say about that. I believe they're going to give us a training on it. But just to illustrate, I know we still have this hard March 31st deadline, but we also concurrently are dealing with trying to get the best, most accurate information. What we do believe we have, and we talked with Iqbal about it and Robin, we believe we have all of the QIP information for all of you service providers from the department, and that we should be able to have it all included in rates effective when you bill at the beginning of April for the month of March. So I know there's a couple more that we're working on right now, service codes, but for the most part, they've been able to apply the massive number of QIPs that you have all qualified for. Again, we had an opportunity to share with in meetings this week about the success of our service providers, and I believe 894 were able to successfully navigate getting into the service provider directory in order to be eligible effective January 1 for the full benchmark rates. So congratulate you all for that. We will certainly be working with the around 60 or so, I think, providers that we are still not connected with the service provider directory. I know we had a discussion with a couple folks yesterday about that. All right, so now I want to see if there's any questions before we have Michelle talk about office hours. Oh, in the chat. What if we will not receive our acknowledgement letter or workbook? There is a likelihood, applied milestones, that you may not have it by that date by us from the regional center. I think what I mentioned before was, I think we sent out a bunch of inaccurate ones, and that shows that we really tried as a regional center to get it out by March 31st. But unfortunately, our charge is to do it accurately for you all, and we recognize that we're going to have to keep doing it again and again until it's accurate. And so it really is in all of our best interest. I think we can show for you applied milestones that your rates should be, or any of the other providers, your rates will be shifted over from the previous billing methodologies or the previous rates to the new ones effective January 1. And then we will be working as closely as we can to get you transitioned the rest of the way. We did turn in our exemption requests this last week. We uploaded all of those to the Department of Developmental Services, so they have those. Let's see here. Michelle, we have decided that we want to help support our providers, and we are going to be offering an opportunity for them. Is that correct?
Yeah. Do you want to let me share my screen, or I don't know if you have
I
the
would
flyer
like
up?
to let you share your screen, yes.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so are you seeing the flyer, John?
I sure am.
Okay, so we wanted to, for the month of April, just allow providers to reach out to us if you guys have questions or would like to further discuss this. Your workbooks or the QIP or any concerns that you have with the acknowledgement form. As always, you can connect with your assigned specialist as well, but we just wanted to offer this as additional support for you. So we will be having office hours. I'll put this in the chat for the month of April, every Tuesday and Thursday from 11 to noon. And we will be reserving 15-minute blocks for you guys so you can independently talk about your rates and those kind of things. So the process is just sending me an email and letting me know right here the information to provide just your vendor number, your service code, and your brief description of your questions that you do have on your workbook or the QIP so that our team can be prepared. So you'll log on to that link at your block time, and we'll go over your workbook. We'll talk about, we'll have your specialist there and the manager assigned, and we'll support you with that. So we'll get that in the chat, and hopefully we'll see you guys there.
So Michelle, I think we can send that out to all service providers that are on MailChimp, signed up on our website. This has been an expressed concern of a number of our service providers that the message is broadly getting out to all of our vendors related to this. Especially related to the service provider directory. I think what we found is that a huge number of our providers actually were, but we don't want anyone to kind of fall into the gaps. And so I say that because if anyone has any ideas about how to disseminate information about the availability of the office hours, obviously it's a little bit of an echo chamber because I think a lot of people will come to this meeting. It's the same people every Friday, but we know that there's a lot of other service providers that we have. So for on the residential side, I was thinking, Michelle, maybe we can, distribute it to our facility liaisons. If they know that they're going to be going out to any of the homes, they can talk to residential providers, possibly about it. Again, just those of you service providers, if you have any ideas about sharing this, we just want to get the message out there broadly that we're going to be setting time, Iqbal's time, my time, Michelle's time, our manager's time to do some office hours to try to answer questions and use your time wisely as well as providers. So any questions about that?
Donna, and I put the summary of the payment timeline and process. I'm putting that in the chat for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I don't think from our discussion with Robin and Iqbal that there was anything else that we wanted to make sure that we shared this morning related to the rate study. But again, encourage you all to connect with your community services specialist directly if you have questions. You now have a new opportunity to be able to access some office hours as well. So please ask the questions. Like right now is an opportunity, especially for anyone that's in like a held harmless type of situation, to really be discussing things with the regional center about the future of their services. Let's see, transportation providers. There's a note in the comment there.
That was from me.
Okay.
That's part of the timeline. Mhm.
Okay, good. Yeah, we have received a lot of the information from the transportation service providers. So I just want to acknowledge those of you transportation service providers that are on that gave the information to help us do the calculations for the hold harmless. All right, excuse me. And I am going to now go over to DDS's website and share a few things. So here is, all right, we turn the main page of DDS's website. We got some stuff on here. So there, I want to actually go to the highlights on DDS's website and talk about a few of these different things. So first thing, the master plan draft has been released. So the master plan for developmental services has been in process for a while here now, over a year, and they drafted a 106-page long draft recommendations on the future of our system, something that you might want to peruse, take a look at. They will be finalizing it, I believe, on March 19th. At the master plan meeting is going to be in Sacramento as well. Let's see here. Let me see if I can drop this in the chat for you guys. So that is what's going on there. More to come as it relates to that, to look at how it fundamentally addresses some of the policy, the future policy decisions for us as a system. Additionally, I mentioned it again yesterday at the Provider Advisory Committee meeting that we did receive a remote services directive extending the utilization of remote services for day programs and independent living services through December 31st of 2026. And then there's a description of the services that this specifically applies to. And there was a question related to that has come up related to, okay, well, we can do remote services. What about medical and behavioral day programs and consultation services? And so we're going to be working on kind of what that QA looks like, but really we want those services to be provided as in person as possible with individuals that are providing both medical and behavioral consultation supports. But happily, we'll be working with you all between now and the end of 2025. At the end of 2025, that's kind of when the programs that offer those additional consultation services really need to get aligned with the new directives. So, but other than that, remote services, and I will say once again the same thing I said yesterday, which is this is to be client driven. This is to be related to the wishes of the client for what they need, and it is not a decision that we want to look at placing due to constraints of the service provider. Alrighty. So with that being said, I think that is, let's see, the other thing from DDS's website I wanted to share. Did I lose it? Let me share my screen again, sorry. All right. They did release the, sorry, I'm not sharing yet. There we go. Now I'm sharing, yeah. They did release the RFP for the implicit bias training, and they also have updated their website, and I mentioned this about a month ago, but for resources for all Californians. Increasingly, concerns have been raised to our department as to Medicaid funding and the impact that it may have related directly to services for individuals with developmental disabilities in the state of California. Increasingly, the department, I'm hoping, is going to be putting resources onto this webpage to provide some supports. And then, as I mentioned, with Lori, myself, our executive team, we also are in the loop with some others at a statewide level monitoring kind of the status of implications at a federal level. So, and as I would just caution, as things appear, we can look at trying to best address them. But it is tough until things come a little bit more into focus about what some of the specific impacts are going to be for client services. So certainly something that we will keep a place for and talk about here in the future as things change and we learn more information. And I'm going to pop over to our Alta website real quickly and go over to our events calendar, and we'll go to view our calendar. So you can see just starting off the event that Michael referenced a little bit earlier. Just to encourage you all, please don't hesitate to attend any of these upcoming sessions that we're having. I don't know that we have Jennifer or Michelle on, but they certainly are very involved in our annual purchase of service meetings along with our data team as well. So that will be coming up on March 18th for those of you that are interested in participating in that. And then we have a March 25th session as well. So just want to encourage folks, check out our website. We've got a number of great opportunities. And also, if you are a service provider and you're interested in getting an event on here, let's see. I don't know if Lindsay Dyba's on. I know VTE, Futures Explored, had something coming up. Their dance that they wanted to promote. But these are great places where we can get your information posted onto our website. All right. And with that, and as I see that there's no burning rate study questions in the chat right now, I think I'm going to throw it over to Casey from Shift Care. And some of you may have, oh gosh, it's been a couple months now. I think when you guys were on last, and I think it was right at the end of January, and we were rushing to give everyone updates about rate study information. And so you have a little bit more time now, and wanted to give you an opportunity to give folks just a brief overview, and then also just give folks an opportunity to ask you questions, and then see if we can maybe give an update on what's been going on with you guys with the regional centers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for that, John, and pleasure to be back. It's also nice to hear, the full circle with all these different rate changes. It's fun to hear and just, be up to date with that. So for everyone who maybe wasn't on our last call when we were here last time, just to give you an idea, Shift Care, we are a business that we help service providers all across North America, even Australia and New Zealand. It was actually founded in Australia. And so we have just over 4,700 different disability providers that we help serve. Here in the US, we also help with some aged care and that sort of thing. But our core product was specifically built actually for an individual who was a mom and pop that needed a solution to help with scheduling, timekeeping, care management, and built it for their own business. And then it just took off because there's a big need, especially if any of you are familiar with the NDIS system in Australia. That's where it was birthed out of, very similar to the regional center in different structure here in California. So we've continued to work with multiple different providers, multiple different regional center locations as well. I put in the chat there, we actually even have a website page on our website, rather specifically designated to regional center providers. So feel free to hop on there, get any information. But I'm also here to obviously answer any questions from those who saw our previous conversation. And we also have a free trial if that wasn't clear as well. So
Hey,
if you want to try it yourself,
let's
go
touch
for
on
it.
this one real quick. So let's rewind back to the website. And
Yep.
so on here, and I'm sharing am I sharing my screen to the correct thing?
Yes.
Yeah. So if anyone is interested in working with you all, there's some information that's on here. So first of all, this is your website, so people can navigate through Shift Care and learn a lot about you guys. And I know we did that a little bit last time.
Mhm.
But specifically, because that's what I felt like I cut off. People were asking you guys a bunch of questions and then we kind of had to go. So I just want to make sure you all as service providers, if you want that follow up and want to get connected with them with Shift Care, is this a great primary? I mean, certainly Casey, we can get your email and Connor's in
Mhm.
the box, but is this just a great way for folks to connect with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So on there's a way you can try for free, or if you book a demo, that's just a time with either Connor or I. So we would be the ones that would be having those meetings with you for if you had any specific questions that maybe you didn't want to ask in this larger format. We're more than happy to answer any of those. Yeah.
So I had a couple questions, and I just wanted to kind of talk about the relationship with regional centers or the relationship with like service providers and like billing and kind of those types of things.
Hmm.
So, what we discussed previously and what we know would be available is that if a service provider was interested in incorporating this into like how they run their business functions related to client care, et cetera, they can get
Hmm.
into, a direct contract with you, and there's a good way to do a free trial of that type of thing through your website here.
Yep.
Additionally, is there a role that your platform can play for like family members as well directly? Because I mentioned it sounded like you guys were
Mhm.
maybe looking at trying to engage with some regional centers related to possibly that type of thing, where people that are
Absolutely.
just a family member that might be like we have. I think Jason's on here, but we have our coordinated family supports, right? And that's like kind of a cornerstone of the idea of that service is to help organize, a range of different things like in-home supportive services hours or doctor's appointments and things like that. And so,
Hmm.
as we have these platforms, which you guys know, you're not the only platforms that we kind of
Absolutely.
we even bring on this meeting here. I wonder about that idea of opening that up to families and clients directly too, to be able to help support some of them to keep track of these things.
Absolutely. That's a great point. So Shift Care, the product is actually made up of three different aspects. There's the administrative view where you do all the scheduling, timekeeping, you build out, staff and client profiles, you see timesheets, all of that. Then there's the mobile application. That's for the individual who's actually providing the care to clock in, clock out, do all their notes, do goal tracking, all of that sort of thing. And then we do have that third aspect that talks to exactly what you're asking, John, where it's what we call literally the family portal, is where family members, whether they're local or not, can have access to see what is the care that's being provided for their loved one, a place to actually communicate, and also to see, potentially picture updates, ask for different shifts to be requested, and that would be any request through that would then go directly into the administrative view to where you could easily schedule it. So that is absolutely something that we highly value. We're doing a complete refresh to it as well because of how much importance we see that can be in that area. And so it's a great question.
I want to open it up to our service providers that are on to see if folks had any questions specifically.
Yeah, and while I'm, please don't hesitate to ask, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to show you.
Yeah, please do.
Just wanted to show you what shift care looks like because that might bring up, a few other questions as well. So just a very high level view, you can see this is this schedule. You can build it out with the focus on either clients or staff. You can build out different teams. So for instance, I have Casey's client pod. So if one individual is working with multiple different clients, you can build it out for that. Or you could have different teams of staff. So if they're location based, maybe they're skill based or language based, you name it, however you want to build out those teams, you can. There's tons of things that I could go into here, but I'm curious, is there anything that someone's seeing that they maybe want to know a little bit more about?
Nice. A second time was the charm, and everyone
I
got the
guess so.
information they were looking for. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will also say this, when you look on our website, you'll see our pricing, it's readily available. But however, with our relationship that we've built with Alta specifically, we are offering 40% off our normal price for any of you vendors who would like to get started, as a little thank you, and just show how much we care about this relationship. And also to kind of reiterate that as well, our CEO is flying in from Australia to really have a good understanding of what is needed in the California market. He's actually used to live in California for a while, so not unfamiliar at all.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, for sharing the information. Again, appreciate any additional conversations you have with service providers. As you guys continue to engage, it sounds like there's so to kind of explain things, to try to explain things a little bit clearly as it relates to directly vendoring with the regional center to be able to be utilized by like clients and families, like through a direct purchase of service, that would require them establishing that vendorization with like a vendoring regional center. So it sounds like they're kind of engaging in California with a regional center, possibly for that. And then, the beauty of it is once you were vendored with one regional center in the state of California, any of the regional centers can be a user regional center. And it may well be that in this case, because it really is just a virtual platform, it would make sense to get vendored once at a certain regional center, and then the remainder of us, look at trying to expand utilization as you guys expand, the functionality and everything else, because it's a big market to move, all of that into. But again, ways in which we can use technology to support clients and families more and more, and then service providers, ways in which you guys can use it to support your business practices to like make anything leaner for you guys. Michelle, I saw your hand up, but then I went.
I wasn't sure if I should mention this or not, but in for example, supported living, any in-home care services, we in California, we are very, an employer friendly state. And so, payroll is a real issue for us. And so you're aware, that anything that we do, if we're logging time, we have to make sure that that is exportable and portable for payroll purposes. And so as you were presenting, I was thinking, just how important that is, and how you wouldn't want two separate systems of payroll versus care, because that can create discrepancies, which also leave you liable as an employer. So just things to think about in California is that whole payroll piece and how that bridge can be met for providers so that it is less of a liability for us.
Absolutely. And it is the utmost importance. We actually just went to an advocacy day in Sacramento to learn about a lot of the laws that are changing in that regard so that we are staying top of mind with that. And I can guarantee, like, we actually just messaged our development team this morning about the different formats that are needed. And so we are absolutely on
Yeah,
top.
several of us in SLS use a particular scheduling software here in the region, and we all, use that as well as a bridge to support it, support the payroll function. And so, that if you ever wanted to do like a mini little SLS kind of exploration, I'm sure me and a couple of my colleagues would be happy to set something up for you.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, absolutely.
The beauty of these meetings that we have too, Casey, is that you have also service providers that are very active in statewide groups that are very interested in supporting their peers as well, like that are statewide. Like we have, a big shared interest in the highest quality, especially when Michelle talks about things like supported living services and independent living services. There's been a lot of challenges statewide in defining some of these things, and even now we're working through that with our new directives, capping independent living services at 80 hours, right, Michelle? And coming up with our PAVE project, which we will update folks on PAVE. Which is a project that is looking at increasing competencies and supports and working in a few different service areas. And so Michelle Duchesne and I are actually kind of working on a pilot that's going to be implemented at Alta for that as well. So anything else for Casey, folks? Any other questions or anything? I think Casey will probably be interested in taking up your offer, Michelle, to maybe meet with a few supported living service providers or independent living service providers to make sure that the product that they're putting out there really best aligns with what the needs of our service provider community are.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So the message is that next week our meeting is canceled, correct? Michelle Duchesne and everyone else. Jordan, yes? Okay, so next week we will be having the master plan meeting in person, I think on the 19th. The Lanterman Housing Alliance is meeting at Alta California Regional Center next week. The Association of Regional Center agencies executive directors are meeting in Sacramento as well next week. We will not be having coffee with community services next Friday. So we will get back together with folks the week after that with, I'm sure, a number of rate study updates. And please don't hesitate to reach out to your community services specialist in the interim. Michelle Duchesne is going to be sending out that opportunity for the office hours. So I just want to plug it again for anyone else or anyone that you know that is struggling as it relates to the rate study, to please take advantage of the time that we're going to be setting aside twice every other week in April. So thank you very much, folks. Have a great weekend. We'll look forward to talking to folks next week, and we'll have St. Patrick's Day coming up. All right.